Crash and burn.
Hey everybody. So tonight I'm looking to discuss the 1998 film American History X, starring Beverly D'Angelo, Stacy Keach, Ed Norton's in this, Edward Furlong. And there's a lot more people in that I suddenly can't think of. It doesn't matter. Whenever I think of this movie, I always think about one of Edward Furlong's buddies, one of his skinhead friends. The kid that comes to the door just before they go off to the party that he wasn't supposed to go to. That kid, the one of them, he played the guitar player on the short-lived Canadian TV show Catwalk, starring a pre-fame Neve Campbell, who of course got famous through the Scream series. He was in that, and so whenever I think of, or whenever I watch American History X, the first thing I think of is the old show Catwalk that I used to watch on YTV back in the 90s. But yeah, so anyways, this tells the story of the Vineyards, Danny and Derek, two brothers who get caught up in the whole skinhead movement of the 90s, the whole like neo-Nazi skinhead movement, not like a traditional skinhead movement, because that would have made this more like Made in England and less like American History X. But anyways, yeah, and Derek, of course, he's the older brother, played by Ed Norton. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison for wiping out a few gangbangers who were attempting to steal his father's truck from the front of their house. And his father had died as the result of a drive-by shooting at some place where his father was a firefighter, and he was there putting out the fire when he was gunned down. And as a result of a drive-by, this triggered Derek to go full on into the whole white supremacist skinhead movement, and he ends up moving through the ranks because he's smart, ambitious, and vicious. He moves through the ranks rather quickly and efficiently, gaining the attention of the leader, the fucking chicken hawk, as he's called at the end of the movie, led by Stacy Keach, who's... The casting in this movie is absolutely incredible. Ed Norton as a skinhead is not something I ever would have pictured him being able to pull off. And I know he bulked up for the role too, but fuck, does he annihilate the role. Like, I believe his hatred. And the fact that they cast Stacy Keach to be the leader of like the group of skinheads, I shouldn't say a group, it's more like there's a small army of them at this point. There's a few hundred of them. And for Stacy Keach to be cast in that role, it's so perfect. Because, see, whenever I think of Stacy Keach, for me, I mean, of course, everyone thinks of Mike Hammer. But I also think he played Titus's dad in the short-lived TV show Titus, for anybody that remembers that. And I always see Stacy Keach as being like a really good guy, like a decent guy. But fuck, he's a snake in this. And like Ed Norton calls him, a chicken hawk. He's a total chicken hawk. He's picking on like the young and the weak and the sort of like the lost and the disenfranchised. And he's enrolling them into these ranks of with like so much hatred. And he doesn't really care about these kids. He just uses them to achieve his own political goals and whatever the ends that he's attempting to pull off. And Ed Norton, of course, puts this together after serving a few fun-filled years in prison. And he also finds out that Stacy Keach's character, he went around telling everybody he did time, but that's not true. He did a couple months, but he rolled over on the couple kids that he did the crime with, and they ended up going to prison. And like I said, Stacy Keach only did a couple months. Jesus Christ, I'm dying. But yeah, I mean, this has some of the best acting that any film has ever produced. The dinner scene where Ed Norton goes completely off the rails when they're discussing the riots in LA, which at this point were just happening as the result of the Rodney King beating at the hands of several LAPD officers. And then, wow, Ed Norton, the hatred that's inside of Derek Vineyard and Norton's portrayal of it, it's so gut-wrenching, and he's so lost, and you can see it in his eyes that he believes every word he's saying, and he can't stand the fact that Beverly D'Angelo is dating, well, one of his old teachers from high school, who's also Jewish, who's in his house, and this is driving him wild. And Norton's girlfriend, Jesus Christ, she's a piece of work. But Norton's hatred and his vitriol, and he's just so focused, and then you toss in the fact that Vineyard is incredibly smart and charismatic, and he's like a natural leader. He just takes control of the dinner scene. And aside from the fact that the dinner scene is some of the most gut-wrenching minutes ever recorded in a film, period, it's like a phenomenal show of it's an acting tour de force, right? Like, that's sort of like the ultimate anatomy of a scene would be having the filmmakers and the cast and crew involved break down the dinner scene in American History X, because that has to be one of the most powerful scenes in the history of American cinema. I mean, when he's shoving the food down his sister's throat, like Davina, when he's like, no, you're going to sit at this table and you're going to fucking eat. And she comes after him with a baseball bat, and he tries apologizing to her because he does love her and he cares about his family. But he's so busy being blinded by his hatred that he's not totally losing track of the fact that he's losing control of his family. And by this point, his father has come and gone, and his father was the main breadwinner, and they have a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood. And now it looks like Ed Norton is the breadwinner, because it looks like he's wearing some sort of name tag at the dinner table, which would imply that he has a job, because now he's the man of the house. And he doesn't even notice that his family is slipping so consistently into poverty. And as well, he doesn't notice that his mom, played by Beverly D'Angelo, is also sliding into a case of lung cancer, because he's just so busy being focused on hating everybody. And he ends up going to prison because he went entirely too far when he smileyed one of the gangbangers. He killed him, of course. It's funny because back in high school, smileys were the big threat. And I'd seen one. I didn't see it happen. I saw the aftermath of one smiley. And the person doing it didn't really try that hard, because I think a smiley's designed to kill the person. The person that had it done to them, their fucking gums were scabbed and shit. Like, that is something that I never thought I'd see. But when they attempted to, like, lift up their lip to show you, their teeth were all fucking shattered, and their gums were, like I said, scabbed. I didn't even think gums could really do that, you know? And it's because the way that they had their mouth manipulated while it was trying to heal. It was like more air was hitting their gums or something. But smileys will fuck you up. But this smiley that Vineyard does to the gangbanger, it kills him. He does 3 years. And while he's doing time, he's gang raped by a handful of his white supremacist friends. And this causes him to sort of, well, that and the fact that it's a black inmate that keeps him alive, the guy that he has to do the laundry with, which I absolutely love the irony there. The black dude is the reason that he's alive. Once he tells his crew to go fuck themselves after they've had sex with him in the shower, he has no protection anymore. Like, he's not with anybody. And it was the black dude that kept him alive this whole time, and I loved that. So, I mean, this movie is just so ugly. It's so violent. And I think about the scene at the grocery store when Vineyard and a bunch of his skinhead friends attack the place because it's staffed by mostly Mexicans. And the poor woman, the chick behind the counter, like how scared she must have been when they're pouring the milk and everything on her, trying to make her white so she'd get a white woman's job. I mean, you just imagine the fear that would, and the trauma that would instill in somebody. Like, she's not going to be able to shake that off. Every time she goes into work, you know that's what she's going to think of for the rest of her life. It's just, so you have to be careful with how you treat people, especially when you're young. I don't care how angry you are. You should probably wait till you're 30 or 35 before you make any decisions that life-altering. Like, if you're deciding to go out and pummel people because of the color of their skin, you might want to think about that one for a couple decades. And then I guess after the couple of decades, if it still makes sense, well, then I guess you're going to do it. I find it hard to believe that you're going to find anybody who'd think about that for 2 decades and still say, yeah, fucking right. Let's go stomp some skull. I just can't see that happening. But I suppose it depends, right? What else did I want to say about this? I also really love the black and white color switch. How Tony Kaye, the director, he's the guy that did Lake of Fire, which is, at least up until a point, I'm not sure if it's this way anymore, it was widely considered up until that point to be the most balanced portrayal of the abortion debate ever committed to film. And that has the same, that's done in black and white, and it has that Tony Kaye black and white. Now, I wouldn't really say it's the most balanced film to do with abortion. Technically, there's a balance there. Scene 1 is pro-life, Scene 2 is pro-choice, Scene 3 is pro-life, Scene 4 is pro-choice. But what I noticed with the documentary was that every pro-choice person was portrayed as being sort of very open-minded and sensible, and every single pro-life person that they either talked to or profiled in the documentary were a bunch of gun-toting, doctor-killing psychopaths. And I don't really think that that's an accurate portrayal of all of the pro-life people, say, in the United States. I've met a bunch of pro-life people here in Canada who don't advocate the killing of any abortion doctors, or they advocate the killing of anybody, period. So I like the camera work that Tony Kaye employed here that is reminiscent of his documentary, Lake of Fire, but I'm just not the biggest fan of Lake of Fire. It's a really good documentary. It's compelling and everything, but I just don't like the lack of more like mental stability shown throughout the pro-life people. They're all portrayed, they're all a bunch of lunatics in the movie. And that has nothing to do with American History X. But again, I was just pointing out how I liked how it went from black and white, which we're looking at now, to color, like we're looking at now. I thought that was really fun. Yeah, this was this movie was amazing. And I think the biggest thing for me was there's the Vineyard families slip into poverty as the result of Norton going away to prison. When he comes back, they're living in not the best neighborhood in this kind of crowded apartment. And his mom, Beverly D'Angelo, clearly is working on a case of lung cancer because she's coughing up blood now as the result of her nicotine addiction. This movie's brutal, but it's really compelling and it's really easy to watch, and it just has it flows. There's such a sense of rhythm to everything. Each scene just builds off the scene before it, and the climax is absolutely heartbreaking. How the movie ends is devastating. And it's just such a memorable experience. And that's where I'm going to leave it, because I've rambled now for a little over 11 minutes. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for those 11 minutes while I discuss the 1998 film American History X. Like always, if you like this review or you like this movie, don't forget to go out and do something nice for somebody. It's simple. Hold a door, or give $1 to charity the next time you're at Walmart. But most importantly, like always, never forget that the world kicks so much more ass because you're in it. I'm getting out of here. Have a good night.